Cartoon Network is, and has been for years, one of the most, if not the most, recognizable animation-focused TV channels in the world. The reasons for this are plain as day. Started back in 1992, the first cartoon-only channel has seen plenty of ups and downs. The latest development has led to the shutdown of its original website, originally launched in 1998. To understand the reasoning behind this decision, we have to dig deep and understand Cartoon Network's origins, growth, and modern-day situation. Let's start from the very beginning and learn about the mind behind Cartoon Network. Ted Turner. Turner inherited his father's billboard advertisement business and took his first step into television by acquiring a dying station. This may seem like it was a bad business decision, but Turner was able to keep the channel afloat by airing old sitcoms, movies, and other similar shows. The channel also had a 3 a.m. news program, which was once hosted alongside a German Shepherd. And that's what I call doggone good news. Anyways, Turner approached television journalist Reese Schonfeld about the idea of a 24-hour news channel in 1978. This was originally Reese's idea, and the two got to work on the channel. Their plan led to the creation of Cable News Network, or CNN. The 24-hour news format immediately made Turner a revolutionary figure in the world of television, as this was the first genre-specific around-the-clock channel in the world. More than a decade later, Turner found himself in a weird situation. He had initially bought the studio MGM UA for $1.5 billion, and in doing so took on an enormous amount of debt. Thus, he had to sell much of it. As a result, Turner was left with MGM's pre-May 1986 to pre-merger film and TV show library. While it might not sound like much, this meant that Turner had the rights to nearly 2,200 movies. To put this stuff to use, he launched Turner Network Television, or TNT, in 1988, finding this library a home. It quickly became very popular, thanks to all of the different shows and movies people could now see. In 1991, Turner decided to make another move by buying the library of animation studio Hanna-Barbera for $320 million. Turner found himself in charge of a massive library of cartoons, and as you may have guessed by now, he created Cartoon Network to put those shows to use. Cartoon Network initially showed cartoons like old Looney Tunes shorts, Tom and Jerry, Popeye, and with Hanna-Barbera he added Scooby-Doo and more. Hell, he owned so much at one point while discussing the acquisition, he forgot about owning old WB cartoons. Cartoon Network premiered on October 1st with Droopy Dog doing the introduction. I don't think it takes a genius to understand why the channel took off so quickly. It offered everything that animation fans, especially children, would ever need. Furthermore, Turner's already massive presence in the TV world kept things running smoothly. TNT and CN would usually be bundled together in subscription packages, if you remember that. God, I feel old. Turner also did some interesting marketing by literally switching the two channels at times. While this was already working well, Turner's experience in flipping channels successfully told him that they could not survive just by airing old cartoons for too long. So in 1993, Cartoon Network launched its first original cartoon, The Moxie Show, a show featuring a 3D talking dog and his propeller-headed bug pal. This was soon followed by Space Ghost Coast to Coast, a satirical talk show. One of these is still worth a watch today. Can you guess which one? I don't mean to dump on The Moxie Show, but let's just say it's an interesting piece of history and leave it at that. Space Ghost, on the other hand, is still hilarious to this day. I would watch that even 3 decades later. However, these shows didn't necessarily lead to anything major. In fact, nothing major happened until 1995. It was then that Cartoon Network launched their What a Cartoon show, which presented a variety of original animated shorts. Produced by Hanna-Barbera Productions, the show featured 3 cartoons, each telling a short story coming together to make a 30-minute episode. It was clear that Cartoon Network was taking a chance on this, so they did not intend on making the show too long. A handful of shorts was a better way to test the waters. The show was also called the Cartoon Show later and aired until 2002. Under this, a lot of 48 cartoons were shown, which were created by the studios to channel their creativity. This hit the airwaves at a time when Western animation was getting a little stale, so Cartoon Network blessed us and broke the mold with shows like Johnny Bravo, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Dexter's Laboratory, Cow and Chicken, and most importantly, the Powerpuff Girls. While most of these shows are classics, the Powerpuff Girls, which featured 3 superpowered kindergartners, managed to connect with audiences immensely. As if this boost was not enough, TBS, aka Turner Broadcasting System, merged with Time Warner for approximately $7.7 billion, which gave Cartoon Network access to their original shows, the old MGM-UA library, plus every cartoon owned by Warner Brothers. Witnessing the success of What a Cartoon, Dexter's Laboratory became the first cartoon show to receive its full series in 1996. This was followed by the production of full series of Cow and Chicken, Johnny Bravo, and the Powerpuff Girls. Since the originals started eating up all the airtime, Cartoon Network launched Boomerang in the year 2000, a separate network where the company's original library of classic cartoons could be aired. Remember when I said that What a Cartoon was later known as Cartoon Cartoons? Well, this was from 1998 to 2003, where the majority of our memories lie. This lineup eventually included newer shows like Codename Kids Next Door, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and more. Then, in 2003, Cartoon Cartoons was rebranded into Fridays. In the meantime, Cartoon Network was making movies and trying to attract a more mature audience to watch the animated series. For this, Warner Brothers launched the cult hit Toonami, a late-night program that broadcast anime from Japan alongside Western action animations. I personally believe that Toonami is one of the most influential and underrated TV programs in history. It literally predicted the curve of mature cartoons becoming mainstream, and you can also make a case that it was TV programs like Toonami that led kids of that generation to become interested in anime and similar series as they grew older, which has become a trillion-dollar industry. So we're gonna take a little bit of time to understand Toonami. Originally, Toonami was known as Moltar, where it was more of a spin-off of Space Ghost until 1999. In July of that year, Cartoon Network introduced the new Moltar, a robot named Tom, voiced by Sonny Strait. In this era, Toonami began running shows such as Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Voltron, Mobile Suit Gundam, and many more. The show was divided into morning and midnight runs, with the latter featuring more violent programs. The producers of the show were building a lore around Toonami itself, with certain events leading to the destruction of Tom, resulting in the show being run by Sarah and Tom too. During this era, Cartoon Network's website even launched an MMORPG game titled Toonami Lockdown, which set records for page views and ratings for the program. In 2004, Toonami introduced a new wave of shows, which included heavy hitters like Naruto, Mobile Suit Gundam Seed, One Piece, Pokemon Chronicles, and many Western animations like Teen Titans, The Batman, and Justice League Unlimited. Toonami also worked with Production IG and Bandai Entertainment to create their first original series, IGPX, Immortal Grand Prix. Considering the way original programming worked for Turner's companies, it was inevitable that they would take over, right? Well, unfortunately, this was not the case this time. Barely anybody remembers IGPX now, and Toonami hasn't really bothered to re-air it much. IGPX was a mecha racing anime, where gun-wielding robots became vehicles used in races. While the show itself wasn't bad, in fact it was actually pretty enjoyable, it just never seemed to take off. Years later, people involved in the creation of the show, including writer Jason DeMarco and producer Terashima Furuta, acknowledged that the show tried too hard to appeal to both its Japanese and American fans. This is visible in the plot too, as mechas were super popular in Japan, but the plot definitely took a distinct American angle. Furthermore, the dialogue delivery and the way the story unfolded was too American for the Japanese audience. Due to the contrasting differences and Toonami's decision to appeal to both audiences at the same time, it ended up appealing to nobody. I mean, this decision is nearly the sole reason behind IGPX becoming a flop. If they had decided to simply keep it as an anime, I'm sure the show could have flourished. Anime like Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, and One Piece were already thriving in the American market, so why would people not watch IGPX, a completely fresh and new show? Anyway, this ended up as the first and last Toonami original. I believe this show's lackluster performance, majorly due to management decisions, is the first red flag about the issues with Toonami. Another red flag was the sudden logo change to this. What is this abomination? Where did my sleek and sexy Toonami go? Ugh, not that it matters though, because on September 20th, 2008, much to the fans' shock, it was announced that Toonami was getting cancelled due to low ratings at the Anime Weekend Atlanta. During the final moments of Toonami's last airing, Tom 4 ended the block with a small, emotional goodbye that still hurts my heart. Eventually, in 2012, Toonami became part of another brand under Cartoon Network, which is arguably more influential than Toonami itself. Adult Swim. Launched in 2001, Adult Swim's main demographic was young adults, featuring originals, animated sitcoms, satire, and more. In many households, the switch from the normal Cartoon Network to Adult Swim was important. The late-night switch, punctuated by that iconic theme, meant that it was bedtime for the kiddos. Just like Cartoon Network and other channels owned by Turner, the channel humbly started out by airing classic cartoons. However, this time it aired the uncensored version of shows like Toonheads and The Bob Clampett Show. This was actually a great project for Cartoon Network, as nearly 1/3 of their demographic featured adults at that time. It was also the perfect time to air animations that catered to adults, all thanks to the popularity of Fox's The Simpsons. For its official debut, it aired the Home Movies episode Director's Cut, and the first anime aired on the program was Cowboy Bebop, a cult classic. However, Adult Swim's biggest success came with Family Guy, which boosted Cartoon Network's ratings by a whopping 239%. While I would love to keep on talking about Adult Swim and Toonami, we've got to move on. However, this detour does serve the purpose of the video. We've proved that these two ventures invited a more mature audience to Cartoon Network. If you want a full history on Toonami and Adult Swim, make sure you comment below. Maybe we'll make it next. Coming back to Cartoon Network, it is almost universally agreed upon that the mid-2000s was a distinct low point for Cartoon Network. During this time, most of their shows were on their last legs. While they did showcase a number of good ones like Ben 10 and Samurai Jack, the number of poorly received shows definitely increased. For example, Cartoon Network launched something called Cartoon Network Reel, featuring, you guessed it, live-action shows. How did nobody on the board of directors think that was a bad idea? A channel called Cartoon Network, the world's first cartoon-only TV channel having a real counterpart? That's like Amazon opening its department stores. Why would I go to you? I've got Walmart. But Warner Brothers obviously had to try and capitalize on Disney and Nickelodeon's success with live-action programming. Then there's the 2004 logo, which I personally liked, but a lot of people seem to hate it, even calling it cursed. A lot of their newer shows simply failed to replicate the widespread success of the likes of the Powerpuff Girls and Johnny Bravo. What made the late 2000s worse was the insane amount of controversies the brand was involved with. After the merger with AOL, it started becoming clear that Warner Brothers was just as greedy as Disney. Betty Cohen, known as the Queen of Cartoons and the founder and president of Cartoon Network, stepped down in 2001. This was largely due to creative differences with Jamie Kellner, the then CEO of Turner Entertainment Networks. Kellner also affected other parts of the Turner business, including slowing down World Champion Wrestling, as to him, wrestling was low class. For those unaware, WCW was like WWE and was their only true competition from the 50s until like the end of the 2010s. Leadership continuously rolled over during this period, which meant that the company didn't have much in terms of dedicated direction. New shows aired, but very few really stood out from the crowd. Then, in 2007, the infamous Boston bomb scare happened. Battery-powered signs featuring the Moonanites from Aqua Teen Hunger Force were put up as a part of a guerrilla advertising tactic. However, these light bright-looking placards were mistaken as improvised explosive devices by police, causing mass panic. People were quick to jump on Jim Samples and Jamie Kellner. The public also rounded up Adult Swim's head Mike Lazo for his sexist behavior towards female writers and his controversial quote where he stated that adults didn't need good animation, if any at all, and that kids' shows should be the only ones with bright and colorful colors. Eventually, Stuart Snyder took over. While he is a beloved figure, his start was kinda rough. He brought in a lot of Canadian shows which nobody really cared about, especially Johnny Test, which was considered to be a cheap copy of Dexter's Laboratory. Thankfully, Snyder did end up hitting his stride. Under him, we got massive hits like The Amazing World of Gumball, Clarence, We Bare Bears, my personal favorite, Adventure Time, Regular Show, and Steven Universe. Many of these shows didn't just treat kids as kids and introduced complex and interesting themes that resonated with young people across different walks of life. Of course, the one spearheading, or maybe sword-heading, Cartoon Network's popularity in this era was undoubtedly Adventure Time. This show was what executives had been looking for years. I still remember that I had stopped watching Cartoon Network as much around this time, and suddenly everybody was talking about this show that was so weird and funny and interesting. It literally brought life back to Cartoon Network in the eyes of the mainstream audience. Adult Swim was back in top form in the 2010s as well. Their first right step was reviving Toonami, which was met with a good reception. In fact, it was so good that Cartoon Network brought back Toonami as a full-time program. Adult Swim also stepped into other creative fields, like their first animated VR experience titled The Virtual Brainload in 2015. The 2010s mostly went well for Cartoon Network, with it building an even bigger fan base and continuing its legacy. However, things were not looking as good for Warner Brothers in general in the 2020s. A lot of production was affected by the pandemic, and the company was facing serious losses. For cost-cutting reasons, the company decided to shut down the original Cartoon Network website from all the way back in 1998. This was a hugely important piece of the Cartoon Network experience. You could participate in polls, watch bonus content, and especially you could play Flash games. I used to love these games as a kid so much, and making this video kinda just makes me want to go back and play them again. But for some reason, people believed that Cartoon Network itself was getting cancelled. Thanks to the love of clout, people started using hashtags like #RIP Cartoon Network, which confused people to the point that the channel had to make an official statement to clear things up. The website also hosted a lot of cartoons, which was supposed to be a source of revenue for them. However, competition from platforms like Netflix and Prime was taking a heavy toll on Cartoon Network, and they weren't alone. Many entertainment businesses, like WWE, had to shut down their own streaming service websites because of the high operational costs and low returns. Furthermore, the lack of dependence on cable networks affected Cartoon Network. Kids tend to watch things on their devices instead of a TV now, and this was apparent in their numbers. In July of 2024, Cartoon Network averaged only 74,000 viewers during their broadcast, ranking them 43rd overall, far from their prior glory. Hence, Cartoon Network decided to change its strategy. Now, when you search cartoonnetwork.com, you are redirected to a website called Max, which is Warner Bros.' ultimate streaming service platform. Formerly known as HBO Max, the video-on-demand streaming service offers content from Warner Bros., Discovery, HBO, CNN, Animal Planet, TBS, TNT, Eurosport, and much more. It also features Max Originals. Now, Cartoon Network and Adult Swim are part of this streaming service too. In fact, in 2024, you can buy a bundle of Max, Disney Plus, and Hulu together in the United States. The new Max has been successful so far, with the service becoming profitable in 2023, just 1 year after its rebranding. It's currently the 4th most popular streaming service with 95 million subscribers, and it generated $7.7 billion in 2023. However, the takeover by Max has also resulted in a loss to animation as a whole. In 2022, the then dubbed HBO Max dropped all sorts of titles from the streaming service, essentially abandoning the shows and leaving them unable to be watched on a legitimate service. Understandably, some of the people who worked on these shows spoke out against this action. We'll see what happens next for Cartoon Network, but being a part of the huge suite of content on Max might result in less animated content for people to enjoy. Or maybe the executives in charge will have a change of heart, bringing back the shows they dumped and perhaps even funding new ones. I can't say for sure which will happen, as I'm just a YouTuber, but maybe you have an idea as to what Cartoon Network will do next. An insider scoop maybe, or maybe just even a strong opinion. Make sure you let us know what you're thinking down in the comments and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and remember, Frederator loves you.